This video is about putting lights into Cato passenger car. Not the way you'd normally think. This is a Pennsylvania passenger car. I got it as a 4-pack, and I've already put the interior lights in it. But what I want to do is have some kind of marker light at the end. Unless you buy the 6 or the 10 or 11 car set, you don't get a rear observation. But if you look at these cars, there's a little nub right there that's been molded in, which would be the rear marker lights. So what I want to be able to do, and this is the final result, is to get those rear marker lights. Now you can also see on the side view that this is lit up as well. And again, it's just a video about how to install these little red lights that are in there. So what I've done so far is taken the shell off, and if you look close here, you can see that I've drilled 2 small holes where the lights are going to go. And then I've gone ahead here and I've got 2 red LEDs that have that I already picked up. They'll work for, I think, anywhere from 9 to 16 volts. And they're attached with a magnet wire. And what I've done is I've sandwiched them in here so that I can then use this little piece to go into the top part of the car in there on either side. Of course, I'll have to cut it to size, but my plan is that I'll take that and glue those in with the LEDs pointing through the little holes. And then this is the body of the car. I already have the light kit. The rear lights will go on this end of the car. So what I'll end up doing is putting the wires along and soldering them in here, or maybe I'll solder them. I'm not sure where I'm going to solder them in yet, but that's what I'm going to start working on today. Alright, so you saw how I had taken these, sandwiched the LED, well, I guess I've got to get in front of the camera, sandwiched the LED right in there. I'll do a little bit of scraping to get that better. The next step up is the official Digitrax template. So here's the little template I made, and what this does, let's see if I can show this. So it just slides in like this, okay? And then the little hole is present right there. So what I'll be able to do is overlay this on top of this guy and cut it out. Of course, it won't be that deep. I'll cut it off a lot shorter than that. Now that'll also necessitate filing a little off the windows, because I'd rather have the surface area against the back there. Anyway, next step will be to prepare these guys and then see how that all fits. Okay, in order to place this properly, I need the LED turned on. So to turn it on, I'm using a DC power pack, Cato power pack here, different voltage. Coming out of it is wires with alligator clips going into these little guys, because they're much gentler on the wires that go into the LED, coming down to the LED that's here, and which is going to face that way. So I can increase the power, decrease the power. So that's how it's going to clip in. Now you can see that looks like that coming through, and that's because it's not quite lined up properly. I'll get a little more voltage. It's not a bad red light there, but if you look, you can see how bright it really is, which means I'm off somewhere. So I'll do a little bit of trimming. I want to have a nice bright light coming through there, because that's such a narrow little spot. But you can see in principle it's working. I created this paper template, and then I overlaid it on the light like this. And when I do my overlay now, I can see it just may have to go a smidgen that way. So I got some stuff. I'll do a little bit of filing, and we'll go to the next step. Okay, I'm just holding it in with my finger, but I think you can see how much brighter that is than it was before. So now I got the LED shining right where I want it. Now I have to do the other one. Okay, and this step is where I take the pencil and I trace the paper template over the styrene. And what I had done earlier is I'd taken two styrene pieces, cut a small hole out for the LED to fit in, and then sandwiched the LED between the styrene and clamped it. Used the Plastrex cement. I used the heavier duty orange bottle, and then I let that dry overnight. It actually dried a couple of nights. Now after making the template, I've just taken a pencil and marked on the styrene. But what I had to do is turn the power on, power over there, and wrote all that through so that I could line up the template over the LED to get maximum brightness through. Now that it's marked, I need to cut and shape and put it in. Okay, now that I've taken my two LEDs and figured out how to make them fit into the back of the car, the next step I did is I took these, which are the side windows, and I trimmed just a tiny bit off the end, a couple of millimeters, because of the thickness of each of these guys. The setup I have here is transformer with power coming through, and it's coming into here where I've got a clamp on to super glue it. I've got a little connector here that I bought, and I'm just testing to make sure that it's going to work okay. So it's being super glued on. Once that's done, I'm going to take and solder these guys. I'll cut them shorter, but I'll solder them somewhere in along here and give a little bit of slack. Okay, a slight change in plans. I decided to leave these wires the full length because they're so thin I can easily curl them, and it gives me a little bit more flexibility to move stuff around. Here's where I've cut off a hunk of wire here, and then soldered these guys together and joined them and put some shrink wrap on. What else did I do? Right in here, you see a little bit of black. I had noticed that in my filing I was a little too aggressive and I could see a little bit of bare wire, so I put some liquid tape on that. Similarly on this, that should now be completely dry. A little bit of liquid tape down in there because I noticed that when I pushed this through, one of the pins came through a little bit. So now if we take this all off, you can see how this guy's in there. Two LEDs, which I'll plug in. What you can't, I'm not going to plug them in hard, just anyway. And what you can see is when they're plugged in, I get LED light. Okay, I've done the initial tack of the plates in, and straight on you can see those are lovely bright. And you can see here how these guys are. At this point I just got a little bit of this Plastrex on it. I'm going to put some more all along the seams to make sure those are glued in. This is the inside, and I notice it's a little bright where the lights are coming through, and during daylight you probably won't notice it, but at night I think you might. So in order to cover it up, I need something. Black paint will do, but I'm going to use some liquid tape because it's thick and black. So let me try that and see what it's like. Okay, lights are still on. You can see the light back here, but you can't see any shining through. This is the toothpick that I used. This is the brush-on electrical tape that I used. And it dries pretty quick, so we'll give it a few minutes to dry while I go and do my solder job. Well, the saga continues. I tried soldering to these pads. You see I soldered here, so I soldered this guy on. The problem was when I did that, trying to position it moved these contacts out of the way, and I didn't see any easy way of doing that. So what I've done is I had purchased from SBS4DC, that's SBS4DCC.com, I believe, Anyway, they sell a lot of stuff, and they sell these little strips, specifically Kato strips. They come in a pack that looks like this, and Kato contact strip. I took a couple of them, they're straight copper, and I put a little bend on them. Now what I'm going to do is put them in and solder these wires to the top of these guys, and then lay them in, and as I clip this in, I'll position it the way I want to, and hopefully that'll work. We'll find out shortly. Okay, so the next step is the Kapton tape on here. I was worried that, because this fits in here, that these guys might, I mean there's a small plastic piece here, but I was just worried a little bit about it, so I thought I'm going to wrap it in Kapton tape, and that way if anything does move untoward, it shouldn't be a big deal. So that's what I've done there. And then I'm going to use a dab of super glue on here just to glue that back down there so it doesn't move around and rattle. Okay, I've now put power to the wheels. DC system going through, power coming into the wheels here, and then we're plugged in here where we should be. Those go back to the lights, and bingo! Get them in there. Okay, and here I've put the interior light back in, and I've plugged the guy in so you can see the lights are still working with the interior. And there we are with the finished product. Okay, so I now have a passenger car for, it's not an observation car by any means, but it's lit and it has the tail lights on it. So, successful project. Happy with that. Okay, so after all my work putting in the lights, you can see here what the end result is. Now, those are pretty bright. That's the lights on. If I'll turn them off here. And lights off. And you can see how bright those are. I mean, those are really bright. If you look, you can see it reflecting off the track and all the way back. So I need to dim them down, and I happen to have some Tuscan red paint, so I'm just going to put a little bit of paint over the lens, over the LED, and do that a couple of times. I want to make sure I can see them in daylight, but I don't want them to be overly intrusive in daylight. And when I turn the room lights on, you can way back, and right now they look in here probably kind of white, but to me they look red, but they're hard on the eyes, so I'm going to need to tone those down a bit. Okay, so I applied a bit of Tuscan red to the tail lights, and now as you can see from a daytime shot, they're not too bright. They're still bright, but they're not nearly as bright as they were before. And if I do a nighttime shot, you can see just a little bit of a glimmer off the rails, but not a heck of a lot, and depending on the angle, the right one might be a little bit brighter, but a whole bunch better than it was. So that project is done.